Good afternoon. Welcome to the Education and Planning Committee this November 6th at 4:30 p.m. Call to order. First order of business is the review of the October 2nd committee meeting minutes. Are there any changes, additions, corrections? I think with that, I think should be good. Dr. Abatis, if you would, the enrollment report update. As Dr. Abatis is coming up, I just want to mention that Dr. Abatis has agreed to speak with the NYCCT trustees across the state, including CUNY, about best practices in enrollment. So we're very proud to have her be a part of that. And thank you very much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Abatis.
I'm not sure that your mic is on, Trustee.
Could be.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Carol Urbatus. Good afternoon, everyone. So I will provide a verbal update regarding fall enrollment. I have the most recent report from Friday, November 1st. That includes almost final, if not final, Gemini numbers. So as of this past Friday, headcount enrollment excluding Gemini and non-credit state aidable headcount was up 4.4% and FTE was up 1.8%. When we factor in Gemini headcount enrollment and non-credit state aidable, headcount enrollment is up 9% and FTE is up 10.4%. So there probably will still be some Gemini registrations trickling in, but as of this point, we consider these numbers final. Any questions?
Questions for Dr. Abatis? Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Next. Hi. Sarah Whiffen is going to present on student success, Title III, and support for first-term students, those critically important first-term students. Thank you.
So thank you again for having me. I'm Sarah Whiffen, Associate Vice President of Student Affairs. And I'm pleased to be here tonight to share a little bit more, thank you, about the Title III grant, Strengthening Institutions grant that we received in October and its impact on that student experience, specifically the first year. As you see, it is a 5-year grant that provides over $2 million. We began an institution really focusing on our first year students and their struggles starting in academic year 21-22. So we've been thinking about this for quite a long time and actively trying to do some internal things to ensure that our students are being more successful. We crafted the Title III grant in the spring 2023 for submission. And unfortunately, in round one, we did not get that award, but then lo and behold, in October, we got the award for this year. So we're very excited to start now for fall 24-25 in implementing some of the Title III. And there are multiple initiatives that you see here designed to increase our persistence. But tonight, I'm really going to focus on the pace.
Sarah, excuse me, there's a share application on the screen that's blocking out part of your presentation.
Right. Oh, that's weird. Okay, for a very quick review, this slide was included so that you could see again what our current PACE model is doing. And it is serving 4 academic departments. It also has a Perkins funded position as well as 2 presidential grant funded positions and 1 college funded position. And over the last two falls, 23 and 24, about 40% of our students fall into that PACE cohort already. what our 2025 is going to be able to do, this is my favorite slide. We're going to be able to give a PACE coach to everyone. So all new and matriculated students will be getting a coach, whether they're full-time or part-time. If they're matriculated into any of our degree programs, we'll have a success coach for each of them. And so that is going to be a game changer for us. So why is this so exciting? Because it allows us, switch to the next one, because it allows us to get more personalized with our students. Thank you. Personalized with our students right from the onset. With pre-semester onboarding and understanding the why a student is coming to us in the first place, we will then be able to help establish the relationships earlier and remind students where to find their resources and support, because they'll know who to ask the questions to. And of course, once the term begins, we've already established those relationships, so we're really excited because we'll continue to outreach and support our students throughout that critical first term. We successfully combined PACE's FLIC chatbot over the last 2 falls with 7 weeks where we intentionally outreach to the PACE students differently than our generalized student population. And we link them every week to an online 2-minute or less video about an important topic they need to remember. So this real-time reminding students what's happening has shown to be quite impactful. And just a small caveat, last week at the National EdSites Award, EdSites Conference, which is our chatbot, we won a national award for being innovative with our PACE outreach. So it will be highlighted to other colleges across the nation in spring. So we're really excited about that.
Yay.
We've also worked with the departments to coordinate different ways to support FYE and FYS. For some, we're pushing in and partnering with the instructor. For others, we come in once and kind of show our faces and wave and explain some of the systems. And for a few others, they have us come in and talk about specific topics. So it is, we're finding out what's going on and what works best for our student population. So as we move to grow this entirely over the first term, we will have learned from these lessons. And finally, and very importantly, our coaches respond to those flags that instructors are raising about their academic progress. Where are they? Should they be leaving a class? Should they be getting more tutoring? What does it look like and how can we help them? So we're very excited for this, as I mentioned, but now it's time to reimagine, because the entire first term and the entire onboarding process has to be redesigned with our students in mind and this new model. So questions like, is participation required? Or how do we market it? What language are we using? What can academic advisors do now that they're not doing outreach? Can they do long-term planning? Can they look at students' transcripts differently? What's the outreach model look like for students on financial aid warning? Maybe we focus on that differently. So there's a lot of conversations that we just are starting to think about that will impact the students' experience with the PACE model throughout all of next year, and then every year thereafter, we will be refining and rethinking of it. We are happily already on the search for our PACE coaches. The ad is out. We have 23 applicants who have already applied. We hope to have 2 on board, and the caseload will then be for next fall somewhere in that 1 to 300 range, which is not exactly the sweet spot, but pretty close. We'd like to see 1 to 250, but 1 to 300 will work just fine, and we'll figure it out. So with that, any last questions I can answer for folks?
Questions?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the PD that you're going to offer to these people who are now going to be coaches?
Sure. So we have thankfully onboarded 3 folks to this. So we have a pretty good streamlined training program. And what's wonderful is they will actually be able to see the current coaches in action and work on caseloads without having to take a caseload on right away in the spring. So we talk about student development theory, and we talk about the reasons why a student might be wanting to come to Finger Lakes and how that impacts if they're like, I don't know. okay, well, what does that look like and what do we have here? We talk a lot about systems and we introduce folks to systems here on campus. And we try to ensure that they understand Starfish because that is the product that really reflects how we work with our students and where the notes go and where the appointments go. And students are responding to this pretty well already. We had more than 50% of the students take advantage of PACE over the last few terms, and that was not required, right? And we saw that the data showed those students that did take advantage were at a higher rate of returning and persisting. So we obviously will do more. We have to talk about FYE. These are some of the conversations, what does this look like now with our FYE effort is also going to be, boosted with the Title III, the UDL. So there's a lot more professional development that will be happening, but we have a very good groundwork already because we've established the PACE program over the last year.
So in that 40%, mostly math and science or?
So the four programs that we're actually hosting right now and supporting are nursing, health science and human performance, social science, and computer science. And those all showed data thanks to ACPI. We kind of were able to look at the areas that had the critical loss, and we targeted those four because they showed that they had maybe a higher percentage, and also because nursing and healthcare studies was so important and integral to our Finger Lakes.
And also a lot of data in high school too about PACE with math and science, and there's critical points in that semester, that 20 weeks in high school where if you don't catch it and intervene, they're lost.
Right. So we're very strategic with our starfish retention survey, where we have 3. One is week 2, where we're really asking, are they even showing up, right? Because if they're not showing up, if they haven't logged in, they're already behind. The next is week 6, 7, where it's either a midterm grade and or starfish outreach. So if they're struggling, we are doing those outreaches. And then the next is week 10, 11, right before the last point in which they can leave a course with a W on their transcript. And we try to ensure that students understand what those kinds of decisions can look like and what they might do to financial aid, to their academic success, to their timeline, et cetera. So we're trying to be very strategic.
Thank you.
Sarah, assuming this is going to be successful, I know there's a lot of things we're going to learn from this. There's going to be a lot of analysis done in review. But the extra coaches, when they're no longer covered by the grant, is there a plan for making this sustainable?
Where is Jason? I need
Yeah, I mean, I can speak broadly to that. We're certainly in conversations about it, and Trustee Cushman, you sort of hit the nail on the head in that there's an ongoing analysis. And you may recall last spring, we shared that the initial data from PACE was very, very positive, a 10% retention rate, which is basically unheard of in education, very high number. So we'll continue to look at that. Jason is doing some long-term planning. The Title III, as Sarah alluded to, was a little bit of a surprise. So in some ways, it's allowing us to extend the work that we're doing without necessarily needing to make hard decisions as quickly as we thought we would have to. So we have a little bit more time to study that. The other piece to that puzzle, as you know, is the ASAP funding, which is currently coming from the state. ASAP being another retention intervention that works alongside of and is very similar to PACE. So there are just a few unknowns that, not just in terms of what model is best, but also financially, what will that look like? But the president and this CFO have been talking about that and thinking about that in terms of budgeting. As we get that information, it should sync well with us also having more data to look at all these interventions, which ones are the most impactful? Is it And it may be a little bit from these different pieces. The end product may be something we learn here and something we learn here, and something.
Thank you. That really answers the question. I think you are looking at that and you're using data to drive your decision making.
Yes.
So great.
Absolutely.
Inform your decision. Jeff?
Just one kind of follow-up question. One of the earlier slides, you had the amount of the grant was over 5 years,
5 years, yep.
and how much was that?
$2.25 million over 5 years, and it started this October 1st. So
So can I broadly interpret that that's the budget for this?
yes.
Okay.
Although to be clear,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
So to be clear, the Title III, what is a larger encompassing project piece is sort of like a piece of that project. The Board of Trustees had authorized some initial expenditure into PACE, which was, Dr. Nye, correct me if I get this number wrong, about $200,000 over the course of about 3 years. But this overlap of Title III was not expected, and that's what I was referring to in that. It has shifted the funding a little bit and given us some other financial opportunities as we continue to study this. And ASAP also came in after we started PACE with another stream of funding. Is that right?
You got it right. And what's really, really important is that we get to compare what we could do homegrown with base program with intensive efforts from the ASAP program. And the Title III augments basically both of those. And you should see at least some indicator next month when you see the retention numbers for the fall to fall, but it won't be complete until spring when you get to the fall to spring.
Yeah.
But you should at least see hopefully that there's movement, a positive movement in terms of our student success because of these efforts. And I'm pretty confident you're going to see some simply because starting the year off with 118 more continuing students than we had the previous year, and we've never had that in over a decade, there's going to be some correlation.
Sir, this is wonderful. And I just want to thank everybody from the college that was involved in this grant. I know it takes a tremendous amount of work to get it, and it takes a lot of work to manage it. So we really appreciate all the
Absolutely.
folks who were involved in this did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Start with some resolutions that will be voted on during the full session. Kim Evans Dame on adjusting the professional service positions roster.
Hi, good evening. So as you have in your resolutions, there's some changes in our positions. 3 of our positions have been revised. The first position is Academic and Student Affairs Technology Specialist. The position was previously titled Academic Technology Specialist with the addition of Student Affairs. So previously, this position was supporting academic affairs solely with the technology that they utilize in that area. And now it's going to be expanded out specifically, or I should say more broadly, to both academic and student affairs. With the hopes that we will be able to improve retention efforts, which we talk about quite a bit, which is so important. And the softwares that go along with that within student affairs that really help our students log on. So we hope that this position will be able to support that technology better and also do some analysis too, which is important to what we just were discussing. This position was looked at with regard to compensation, and it'll stay within the pay group with the professional association, the E group. The next position that's being revised is Field Station Manager. The revision is both in title and the position description. It's previously titled the Conservation Education Outreach Coordinator. This position was revised to reflect staffing needs most accurately at Mueller Field Station. The education and programming tasks associated with the Conservation Outreach Education Coordinator position are currently being completed by the Assistant Director of the Mueller Field Station. In addition, the Field Station Manager job description details the professional and academic qualifications required to effectively accomplish the management of the grounds and the facilities of this campus, and to make sure that there's accurate and enough stewardship represented. This position did have movement within the pay structure, and it's moving from a pay group E upward to a pay group B. The second position what's being revised is the Student Success Coach online support. That position was previously an advisor position, and it's moving a little more, I should say, it's moving from a coach to an advisor. I got that wrong. It supports and advises our online students. This position will solely focus on coaching students to succeed in their online courses. This change will also align with the coaching model put into place through PACE and ASAP. As students continue to enroll in online courses, the college wants to ensure that they have adequate coaching and support that they need to be successful. This position did have a slight movement within the pay structure from a PA pay group E upwards to a PA pay group D. Lastly, we have a new position, the Director of Counseling for the Center for Student of Wellbeing. There was some funding that has come in from New York State to support mental health with our students. And that role will work to ensure that the needs of our students, their whole needs, their health, are supported through here at the college. In addition to seeing students directly, the position will work with our remote vendor, Timely Care, to ensure that services are meeting student needs. This role will be asked to provide direction to our clubs and groups that focus on mental health, such as Active Minds, and will be charged with working with local colleges and universities to bring a pipeline of master's-seeking counseling interns. This position also will have a supervisory capacity and will supervise licensed mental social workers. The new position description is within the PA salary group A. I'll take any questions.
Questions? This is, there's some increases and new position. This is all in the budget already. It's already been budgeted for.
It's all been reviewed with our CFO. Any changes get reviewed with our CFO and small group and, discussion. We ensure that we could meet the budget requirements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have a few more updates. It has recently come to the attention of Human Resources through communication with SUNY and the legal support of Ontario County Attorney's Office that the College Board of Trustees is required to approve all professional positions. And what I mean by this is not just full-time positions that you're seeing here tonight, but it also will include part-time positions. And you may or may not be aware, but the college has approximately 70 unique titles for part-time professionals here at the college. So it is a rather large group. So in the future, the board will see not only what the college is hiring for full-time, but part-time position descriptions will need to come forward. And I assume that they'll show up exactly as they are, because we should really be viewing them as professional positions. And really, in SUNY's mind and the state mind, it doesn't matter if it's full-time or part-time. So you could actually have someone in a full-time position and also have part-time equivalents, if that makes sense. So you will see this coming forward, and after the Board of Trustees approves it, then Human Resources will, as with all professional positions, send those to SUNY, the Chancellor's Office, for their approval. And then once we get that, then we send that to Ontario County Civil Service. So they make sure they have for their records which positions are on the professional roster. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. And as Sarah gave a great presentation about Title III, we're excited. And Human Resource has been working on getting the position descriptions and everything up and going. The grant did become effective on 10/1, and we have several positions that we're working on, a program director, coordinator, and technical support staff. And to expedite these critical roles, the college will be seeking from our Board of Trustees members your email approval. And that will come between this board meeting and the next board meeting, so that we don't miss an opportunity to post the positions and get started on recruitment efforts. And then it'll be reviewed at the December board meeting and voted on, formally. So I just want to thank you for working with us on that while we attempt to staff these positions as quickly as we can. Any questions on that?
We look forward to getting those emails.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Cushman, I have just one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
The email addresses, would you be able to send them to both flcc.edu as well as our personal email?
Dr. Nives or Penny, and could we accommodate that? I would imagine we could,
Yeah.
yeah, so that way you can see them. as
That
quickly.
way, if I don't get my
Appreciate you saying that.
.edu stuff, I'll still see it.
I appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you so much.
I guess I was assuming that would come through the board secretary. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Right. Dr. Ortiz.
She's online.
Is he online? Online?
I'm here.
You're up
just-
there. I'm gonna-
Let me. Are you able to hear and see me? I can't see myself, so.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
wonderful.
You're coming across beautifully.
Okay, well, I am reporting to you live from Cooperstown, New York, where I am at the Chief Academic Officers Fall Conference. And I am here before you now to present 3 resolutions. The first is related to the 2025 commencement date. This is a change from the originally approved academic calendar. The Academic Calendar Committee discovered that commencement was scheduled for Memorial Day weekend, the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And through some collaboration with CMAC, they are able to accommodate us the Saturday prior. So just in order to facilitate attendance and celebration. And as an additional note, they also offered us to hold our post-commencement celebration under the white tent at CMAC. So after the ceremony, instead of folks needing to walk back over to the cafeteria, we'll be right there on site. So I think it's just an exciting opportunity for a community celebration after commencement. Any questions on that? No?
Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Yes, okay. May I? Okay, the second is related to the discontinuance of the Wildland Fire Suppression Certificate Program. And basically, it was a couple of reasons. Low enrollment. It was a standalone certificate program that did not lead directly to employment. And it also did not directly apply to an associate's degree. So for those reasons, we are seeking discontinuance.
How many students does this affect this year?
I would suggest none. The courses have not been offered for several years, so I don't believe
That would be very low.
Yes, I don't believe that there are any current students in that program.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none?
Okay, then
Dr.
I
Ortiz?
will Yes, I will go to the next, which is the resolution related to the revision of the program approval policy. And basically, this policy was looked at in order to ensure alignment with the state and also to enhance procedures around the program announcement process. So in your packet, you have the revised policy and procedures outlining those changes.
Any questions? Again, pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Thank you for
Okay.
visiting us all the way from Cooperstown.
All the way from Cooperstown. Thank you. Have a good night.
With that, we'll move on to the strategic thought presentation on the strategic plan and strategic grant update, which, by the way, was an outstanding, Dr. Orloff. Thank you very much for the work you did to prepare the trustees for their presentation at the ACCT conference in Seattle.
My pleasure.
We were literally accosted by trustees from other colleges who want to replicate that program.
Well, that's what I like to hear. That is great news. They should replicate it. It's a fantastic program. On that note, we are here again to talk strategic plan, and it's great to see you all again. So, and that's exciting as well. But today's a little bit of a mixed presentation. As you know, we typically talk about the strategic plan about 4 times a year, but 2 times a year, we're looking at metrics. We're looking at progress. How are things going? And with the adoption of the new strategic plan last year, this is really our first foray into beginning to look at some of the metrics. However, not too shockingly, and those of you who have been with us through the last strategic plan know that for the most part, much of the data that we need to look at, we really can't look at until May, when we have more trend data, or we're able to show the progress over time. So today I'll be highlighting sort of where we are in our tracking progress, sharing some of our baseline data with you. I did also include in the PowerPoint that you all have a few examples of things we're doing. We're not going to spend a lot of time on those examples in the presentation, just because we also, as I mentioned, it's a mixed presentation. We'll be giving you some very early updates on the initial strategic plan grants that you all approved last year. And we are joined today by our strategic grant recipients. Thank you all for being here, who will be here to ask if you would like, but also answer any questions you might have. Just going to give real brief highlights. It's very early days. Most of these projects just started being implemented here this semester. And at the very end, we get to take a field trip. So we can all look forward to our field trip to see one of the strategic plan grants in live and in color, as you say. So given all that we have to accomplish, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the examples, and I'm just going to highlight through where we are with some of our metrics, knowing that I will not only be back in front of you next month with updated retention and enrollment numbers, which we don't have quite yet because we don't get them back from SUNY until later this month, but also then in May, we'll take a look at these in trend form, and we'll start to really see where movement is happening. It's just a little bit too early to do that. It's more slice in time at this point. Okay. So with all that said, we'll get going here. So you'll recall that we have 3 main areas of our strategic plan: student success, opportunity and innovation, and community and industry engagement. So when we're talking about tracking and reporting, at this stage, this sort of early stage of tracking, we have begun to really break down what we have our baseline data already for, and then by May would likely have the trended data, the second year of data, to be able to share what we have processed data for. So when things are getting developed or worked on and will result in some new data, that's tracked in that second box there. And you can see how this breaks down across the total number of metrics that you all approved in the strategic plan when you adopted it. And then we have a few metrics that we're working on actually still pulling together new data for, or infrastructure changes. So I'll give you an example of that. You heard about starfish earlier in the evening from Sarah Whiffen. One of the metrics that's called out in the strategic plan is tracking some of these new things that are happening with PACE through starfish. And we're actually building the ability to pull that data out and be able to share it. So we're still working on that part. The data are there. We haven't been able to pull all of it into a form where we can share it. So we're still working on that piece, but we'll have that pulled together by the end of this year. So that sort of gives you a numeric overview of the process that we're going through to track and report our strategic plan, just to give you that sort of eagle-eyed view. So as I said, then I wanted to share with you where we are with baseline data on several of these important pieces. Okay, so student success. There are sort of 4 key areas that we are tracking, right? That we're looking and gathering data on in order to understand how we're improving student success. So we're looking at retention, not a new subject for anyone in this room, an area we have been looking at, but we're continuing to look at that because much of our strategic plan is focused on that improvement of retention. It's been an area that the Board of Trustees has said to the college, let's keep working on that. And that's why it features prominently in the strategic plan. So retention numbers will continue to be something we look at in a variety of ways. And as you know, disaggregated then by various groups. Same thing with completion. Completion, again, is something we looked at in our previous strategic plan, but it remains an important piece for understanding, are we making progress? Are the strategies that we're employing helping us move that needle? And then we are looking specifically at curricular and co-curricular assessment, which really means we're looking at learning outcomes. So looking at the performance of students on specific learning outcomes in various areas, both co-curricularly, so things outside of the classroom, and things inside of the classroom curricularly. And again, that's something we've done for a long time, but it's specifically a touch point within the strategic plan because of that emphasis on student success. And then the last area is course success. So course success is sometimes referred to in the biz as a DFW report, meaning how many students get a D, an F, or a W as unsuccessful. So we want that number to be small, and we want students who are successful, meaning C or above, passing the class with knowledge and ability to transfer that knowledge. That's the number we want to see go up. And just an interesting fact, course success was not something we were able to look at about a year ago. So that's an infrastructure that we've built out, and we have a really, really strong and robust way of looking at 10 years of data for any course that's been offered at FLCC. And we can divide it by modality, program, all sorts of different information. So one of the things that strategic plans help us do is to build infrastructure so we can continue to understand where we can get better. And that's an actual important outcome of the strategic plan as well, any strategic plan. Okay, so couple of items that you already know about, but Dr. and I already mentioned this precisely, stealing the thunder from this great slide. But we did see for the first time in a decade, we welcomed more continuing students this fall than we had the previous year. We just haven't seen that in a very long time. We don't know how that translates yet for fall to fall retention because we're waiting for our certified data back. So I will be back next month to give you more updated information on retention as well as fall enrollment formally. But that is one that we are already able to look at, and we know it's telling us we're going in a direction. Okay, so baseline data for student completion. So looking at where we are right now with our degrees received from the cohort that started in 2019 and the degrees received for the cohort from fall 20. So remember, when we look at completion, we want to look at 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. So because of that, we have to go back that far in order to get that amount of time, right? In May, we'll have the update to this baseline. So we'll start to look at, are we moving in the right direction? And again, we did look at this previously in the strategic plan, but we have a little bit more sophisticated means of understanding it now. So we want to be able to continue to look at completion as a part of success. So looking at our learning outcomes assessment data, this is again the data that is really looking at students' performance on learning in particular courses. And so the way we measure this is usually with a rubric that's developed by the course instructor. So it's stripping away a lot of other information. So for example, a student in theory can learn something and still fail the course, right? So think about if they don't show up and take the final, or they don't finish a final paper. Lots of things can sometimes interrupt grades, but learning outcomes assessment looks very specifically at a particular area of learning that's been identified as important for that course. So it's a more specific way of understanding student success. So we have a lot going on, and we've collected basic baseline data of where we are with how much we're measuring, and we'll continue to track that going forward, knowing that we want to see improvement both in how often we're looking or in how many places we're looking at outcomes assessment, and then also on the performance of those outcomes. So there's also several exciting things happening, and I promised I wouldn't talk too much about examples, but one thing that is very exciting is because of transformational funds that we received from SUNY, we're able to implement a new software program that's quite extensive, but it is going to allow us to more effectively be able to manage all of this assessment work. Assessment work is a lot of people are involved in it. All the faculty who teach that course have to get together. They all look at stacks and stacks and stacks of papers together. They talk through it. They do all sorts of very intensive work. Managing all of that, you can imagine you could see binders upon binders and binders in closets and stacked in all of these places. I have actual pictures of this. So actually physically managing that data so that it can be used for decision making. So faculty are able to really see, oh, okay, our students are struggling with critical thinking or use of evidence in our writing courses. That's something we need to work on. The management of all that data is key so that they can get to the data, they can use it to make decisions, and they can improve what's happening in their teaching. And that was a real example. Critical thinking and evidence. Use of evidence is something that our students are consistently struggling with across multiple courses. So it's an area that we're currently working on. More to come. Okay, so then again, looking at those high failure rates that we talked about, the baseline data is 8%. Looking at high failure rates, 8% of the courses are designated as high failure rate, and we have an average 14% failure rate across all of the different grades that are in that data set from the academic year 22-23. So that establishes our baseline, and when I come back to you, we'll be able to start looking at, okay, so what was that next data point? Are we moving in the right direction? So next area, opportunity and innovation. What are we tracking? We are looking at recruitment and retention of diverse faculty, staff, and students because opportunity and innovation is supported by diversity, right? When we have diversity, we're able to capitalize on opportunity and innovation in more specific ways. And then we're also looking at new markets for student recruitment. Okay, there we go. So as I think most of you know, Dr. Urbatis and her team have been very hard at work at looking at international student recruitment. It is very early days in this process, and you may hear me say that over and over again. But we have some baseline data looking at 29 students from this fall coming in as international students, and we'll continue to track that going forward as we continue to work on that as a potential new market. We have some other new markets that we are discussing and looking at, and we will be tracking this as well, but this is one that was early out of the gate and we already have results from. Okay, so when we look at recruitment and retention of diverse faculty, students, and staff, you can see those basic numbers there. And they, do the breakdown that allows us then going forward to continue to look at, are we able to improve our recruitment and our retention of diverse faculty, students, and staff. And in case you hadn't noticed, on each of these slides, we actually tag which specific metric I'm talking about if you want the very specific language. So in this case, we're looking at the development of stackable credentials or credentials that can go into other programs. So students who might come in to take a micro credential or might come in to look at phlebotomy and then go into the LPN program and then go into the RN program. It's creating multiple pathways and multiple points of entry that works very well for students who attend a community college. And it also helps to promote lifelong learning. A student might not think they're ready to be an RN. They might not even want to be an RN. They might think, this is good. I'm good with this. But when we create pathways that stack as they get into their career, we become their educational choice for continuing their career because we're taking down the gateways by saying the work you've done with us, it'll help you do more work with it. So we're really working on thinking through what does that look like as we think through new programs and existing programs. Obviously RN already existed, right? So it's not just new programs, but really thinking through the programming we offer. We're thinking through, is there a stackable credential that can go with this? Sometimes it's a national credential or a licensure, like the example I gave you with CNA, LPN, RN, and other times it's something where it allows an entry into something and then we can move from there. So you'll see here on your screen that these following were approved in the 23-24 or between the 23 and 24 school year. So we're going to continue to track the numbers of micro credentials and other stackable credentials that we create over the plan, as well as the students who hopefully succeed in them. We don't yet have student data for this because we just approved these. So that's coming. And an example of that is also looking at something like virtual welding and then having them go into something like one of our SST programs or other manufacturing opportunities in workforce development. Okay, so the another metric area that we're looking at is the use of Starfish for early alert software. Sarah mentioned this to you when she was talking about PACE. And again, these are data points that we've now gathered from the baseline year and will continue to track.
So you'll be able to, at a sort of glance, in a graphic, be able to say, oh, okay, so we're seeing more faculty raising flags, or we're seeing more students receive flags, or we're seeing a reduction in that. And why is that? What's going on? That is that a positive? Is that a negative? So we'll continue to track those items. All right, and the last area is community and industry engagement, and we're looking very specifically at alumni donors. There are also a couple of areas we're looking at that that we're still developing some metrics for, including applied learning sites that are businesses owned by alumni. We're still working on developing the data set for that. But overall, one of the key pieces we're looking at are alumni donors and events hosted on campus. Bringing the community here to be a part of our community is a key way we serve the greater community. So we're tracking that and looking at that. And then applied learning opportunities and advisory boards. Advisory boards are the boards that provide different pieces of information and advice and counsel to our programs. And they're made up generally of folks in the profession. Sometimes also someone from a transfer institution, depending on the field, maybe in our advisory boards. And one of our key goals in our strategic plan is strengthening our advisory boards and expanding our advisory boards. And in fact, we have a strategic plan grant that is working on that very specifically. So metrics. So we've started to look at our alumni donors over both by percent and the N, and along with advancement, who looks at this in great level of detail. We'll continue to track and look at that as we look to improve by 5% is the target that's been set by the strategic plan. And events, same thing. So we have created a baseline number of our events so that we're able to track that over time. And this is something that literally didn't exist previously. We were doing a lot of events, and Bree's area does a really great job reaching out to folks and providing service to them. But we've really been working on making that a larger message and tracking it in ways that we then can understand who's here, why they're here, when they're here, and are there tactics that we want to employ because we're not reaching particular groups. And that's not something you can do until you actually look at something. Until you start measuring it, you can't think about improving it. And applied learning. Applied learning breaks down into a whole host of very sort of specific things. Those details are not particularly important. They are important for our reporting, and we have to report them like this to SUNY. But overall, what we really want to be looking at is increasing the number of students that are participating in applied learning and the types of sites that they're able to do so, as well as looking at the diversity or disaggregated data around it. As you'll see, we do have fewer students of color participating in applied learning opportunities, which tells us that's something that we want to be working on. It's not in proportion with the number of students here who are students of color. So it's a good indication of something we want to continue messaging, thinking about, working on. What is that? And we'll want to see that change over the course of the strategic plan. Okay, and as I mentioned, academic advisory boards is something very specific that is called out in our strategic plan. You funded a strategic plan grant about this, and Linda, who's working on that, is here in case you have any questions when we get to that. But this is our baseline data. This is where we're starting with. And we already have 6 boards in progress this semester that are new. So we already see movement. So when we actually trend this data, we'll see we'll see an increased trend because those will then be established boards, which is always exciting when you know that's in progress.
And just overall, we're gonna move, well, actually, I'm gonna go back here. Why is this going all over the place? Okay. Should we put it? So before I move on to, yes, thank you. Before I move on to looking at our strategic plan grants, can I answer any questions about the metrics or our brief foray into what will be the metrics?
Just comment, Deborah, great job.
Thank you.
I don't think there's a lot of questions because you covered everything very well, but it's just great to see everything moving on. And again, I'm so glad many years ago, we started really looking at this data-driven
Approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trustee guys, you were here at the beginning of the last strategic plan, so I know you've been here on the whole journey. But when I look back and I look at where we were and our ability to talk about data and use data, it is a fundamental difference. And I think we achieved a lot of that with the support of the Board of Trustees during the last strategic plan. And we're sort of poised to take that next step where we're really seeing more access and equity to the data so everyone can use data more effectively for decision making. And that will be, I think, a strong outcome of this strategic plan. So I appreciate your comment. Other questions? Okay. So without further ado, I'll move into doing some very brief updates about the strategic plan grants. As you recall, last year, our inaugural class from this strategic plan was awarded when you approved them. And it is very early days. For the most part, these have just begun to be implemented then this summer. You approved them last June. But it's incredibly important to continue the communication around this, that you know what the work is, and also that the whole college community has an opportunity to see what's in the works and how we're moving towards achieving improvement through our strategic plan. And that's even more important when we know that the call for the next round of strategic plan grants went out just this week. So more to come in next week's e-news in case anyone hasn't seen that. So it's exciting to see the progress throughout the different steps. So let's just take a look at where we are. So we have several different strategic plan grants. The advisory board enrichment, which I just mentioned, Linda Cunningham is here. We have 3 new advisory boards are already in place. 6 new boards since fall of 24. And which I really love, this is specifically because of the grant. We now have a faculty coach for helping faculty get their advisory boards up. And that's being worked on, I think, really effectively. So it is the first semester, but we already see a lot of movement. And as I said, Linda, can you just raise your hand so everyone sees who you are? We appreciate so much your work. And she is here if you have questions on that one. And you can also, if a question occurs to you, you can ask them at the end as well. The next one is looking at alumni engagement. This is being run out of the great folks in the advancement area. And this particular project, I think, is exciting because for a relatively low cost of entry, we're really, it's a game-changing approach to giving everyone in the advancement area a much better idea of who our alumni are, where they are, being able to contact them and really being able to turn the organization in effectively. And we have 3 here, so we can answer any questions that are more specific, but you can see some of the specific areas that the new software and the cleaning of our data has brought about. So we're excited to see where they're able to take this next.
FLCC Reads, led by Kurt Aaron Bliss, also in the house. Can you just give us a little wave so everyone can see Professor Naring Bliss? So this is a project that also obviously just got started, and Kurt's very much in the planning stages, but you can see where this is going and really beginning to take the full shape of a project. So we'll be excited to see where we are as this continues. FLCC CAPS, Jackie Termini, also here in the house. Thank you. Tons of really interesting things. This particular project is a planning grant. So really working on seeing whether this idea would be something that our school district partners would be willing to partake in, would want to partake in. And I think it's pretty easy to say that early returns are yes. And there's been an enthusiastic response so far from the different districts that Jackie's been working on. And working through where the sort of initial project can take place. So lots of good things happening there. And I also just think it's great to see the school districts willing to do things like pay for transportation costs, do some things that will make it more sustainable for us overall to continue the project. That was one of the reasons why this was approved as a planning grant, to see, could this be done and could it be done sustainably? But it's a great example, early days, yes, but a great example of how that little bit of, I'm going to steal your term, Donna, that seed money, right? That little bit of time and a little bit of money to see, is this something, can we grow it, can we go here? The tutoring center, we had the benefit of having a strategic thought presentation from Rick Van Dyke just recently, so I won't heavily go into this, but in place and purchased furniture, accessibility, being able to serve students better is a big cornerstone of what we're trying to do with student success. So that is exciting, and more data tracking to come now that we've got the pieces in place. And iWorks, Jeremy Termini is online to answer questions. The equipment has arrived, interns have been hired, lots of revamping of curriculum to be able to use this new equipment. You may recall this equipment allows his online students to be participating using exercise equipment. This is for our kinesiology program in real time. It's really quite amazing when we think about access and being able to have that same learning experience. It's quite remarkable. So we're excited to be seeing where this will go now that everything's in place. It's sort of raring to go. And we'll be looking at student engagement and grades as outcomes. The GIS lab, Patty Rackwell is here. This was one that took a little extra love, and we appreciate Patty's tenacity, but we have identified a good space for this, and it'll be up and running in the spring of 25. And this is a great one to show how this is purchasing equipment and furniture, but it's also allowing a micro-credential that has already been developed and passed to sort of come into its own. It's also allowing the potential for online students to participate. So sometimes one piece of the puzzle allows many other things to happen, and that's very exciting. So Patty, we're really excited to hear about all of that as this comes together. And then Teresa Dattis is here. Yes, hi, Teresa. The Charlie cart, which I think is very exciting. I can't wait to see it, which is really meant to help educate our students about cooking and taking care of themselves nutritionally when we continue to have so many students dealing with food insecurity. One of the major areas, we have a great food pantry, and one of the things that our students say is, that's great that you give me these ingredients for food, I don't know what to do with it, right? Like what do I do with this? So filling that need, and you can see all these great partnerships that are in process already, and we're looking for a soft launch here at the Study-a-thon. So, and that should be exciting to see. That might be a field trip next semester, so you can look at it. So our zero cost degree program, our OER program with the library, a little bit slower start doing, but I think now poised for greatness.
hiring always takes a longer period of time. So when you have to hire, it tends to just take a little bit longer, but we're getting there. So, and Sarah Moon is here if anyone has any questions about that. So before I introduce our very last one, because it's part of our field trip, let me just pause and say questions either about the strategic plan grant process in general or to any of our folks here about their projects. Donna, go ahead.
I'd just like to ask any of the project managers if there's anything you would like to tell us.
You guys speak in the mic.
Sorry, Christina Haley. I'd like to ask any of the project managers if you have any thoughts about this projects that you're currently working on that you would like us to be informed about. A tidbit or a challenge that you're facing.
This is Patty Rockwell with the GIS Lab. I would just encourage you, if there are community partners that could benefit from working with us on projects that are, could use the value of spatial thinking and to move things forward. We're in the process of queuing up folks that we want to work with our students as part of the GIS lab outside of class. So if you can help us think about that.
That's great. Thanks, Patty. Community partnerships are definitely something that the board has in the past also been very helpful with, but your far reach is always helpful as we think through those projects that are about community engagement. Others, Jackie?
So I can add to that actually. While it's still early in the planning process, just to give you a quick overview of the project. Basically, I'm looking to create a project-based experiential learning opportunity for high school students. So they would come on our campus 5 half days a week. 3 of the days they'd be working on a real project for a real business, which is what I want to ask you about. But the other 2 days they'd be taking a college class while they were there as well, so that they have a course or two, preferably 2 courses a year that they can then use to go on to transfer if they're going into, if they're going to go on to college after. But the projects are the key piece to this because it's a chance for students to get their feet wet, so to speak, and really try something out in order to learn more about themselves. So it's like while they're doing an actual project, they're getting that idea of I like these skills, but I don't like these skills, or this is what I'm learning about myself, so they can make a much more informed decision on what comes next. Because we see here, often related to retention, that when students come in to the college and really aren't sure why they're here and really don't know, what they're doing other than the feeling of it's an expectation that everybody has to do this. And when they get to the first obstacle, they tend to then not be able to get past it. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because what I can't stand is when students walk away after 1 semester at the college and walk away feeling like I wasn't a college, I wasn't good for college. I'm not college too. I thought I could do this and I can't. And often it's not them, it's all these other things that kind of get in the way. So having an opportunity, one, to be on our campus on a regular basis, I think will help, but also having them really understand what they're passionate about and really understand what they might be pretty good at, because I don't think we talked to them a lot about that early on. And it will help them to definitely know why they're doing what they're doing and have a better chance at success. So to that end, I will be revisiting hopefully an opportunity to talk to anybody that on the board or anybody that you know of that would be willing to share a project with the students, because it seems that the districts are interested. We're just working. I actually am up to 4 or 5 districts that I've talked to. Every one of them want to know more. I have a couple meetings set up to really talk through logistics. They're not opposed to paying for transportation to get the students here. They're not opposed to paying for the class for the students to take the classes while they're here. So that was something I wasn't expecting. I really thought that was going to be one of my barriers, but they are very much in support of it. So now what I need is the projects, the pieces, from local businesses, communities. And I can talk to you more about this, offline here, but it needs to be a project, not a task. So we don't want to create a database for you. We need an actual project. You not have social media in your business and you need a social media campaign. That's something high school students could do. And I would actually say they would be very good at doing that because they know, what you're targeting and they know all of that. So you really have to think a little bit outside the box. A lot of people feel like high school students can't do this. I'm going to disagree. They can. They absolutely can do this with the right encouragement. And I'm really, there's no GPA, there's no barriers for students to come into the program. So that was another thing districts were pretty excited about because they assumed I wanted only the high-end kids that, kids that are motivated. Kids. I actually am targeting the opposite students in a way because if traditional education is not working for them, this might be an opportunity to really engage them in a way that they haven't had the opportunity to. So some really appealing projects would be really helpful. So if you'd like to talk about that more, please reach out to me directly and we can talk about what those projects may be. And I would love to get these on sort of a roster because it's the first thing districts ask, like what kind of projects are they going to be doing? So I've gotten a few from FLCC, but I'd love to have community projects to make that a connection.
Thank you. Okay, well, that brings us to our field trip and this is related to our, and I practiced saying this, anatomage. Close? No? Okay, I just can't do it. Like, I'm gonna give up. Anatomage. I mean, it just doesn't look like that to me. In any case, the exciting anatomy table thing that is pretty awesome. And Dr. Miller is here and is going to escort us to see the table live and in action. And we'll be giving you some updates on her progress with implementation. Yes.
At this point of order, should we conclude this meeting and then go on the trip?
Yeah.
If so, we do that before.
So I'll leave you to that and then we'll reconvene up in the incubator. We can fall in line and all go together.
Great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you, all the
Move that we
folks that came in. Very much appreciate you coming in and supporting this and helping to inform us. So I have a motion from trustee Geis. Do we have a second? From trustee Assels, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
How do you hold on?
Same? Nope. Thank you. Education meetings.
Very well. I wanted to call you.
Everyone's invited. We'll have to have her before.
My brother is very concerned about.
We're actually headed to the incubator, which is also another strategic plan.
That's right.
That was received, and that's how we set up this.
That's a good point. Thank you for
He's
sharing
very
that.
concerned that younger kids will be behind, we're gonna be behind, because we're all human diseases. It's important that we help more kids to get the MMR.
Check.
Probably super in the line.
All right. Thank you, Chair Cass. Appreciate that. We'll call to order the Board of Trustees, Finance and Facilities Committee meeting here on Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. First, a review of our October 2nd, 2024 committee meeting minutes. Comments, questions, changes? Again, thank you, Penny, for putting those together and crafting them. No changes there. We have our CFO online, and there he is.
Hey.
Hello, Jason.
Good evening. So I'm calling from Saratoga Springs. So Laura and I dropped her off in Cooperstown today. So
Well, thank you. That sounds like an efficient trip. And
yes.
Hope all's well. Though. Thanks for joining us remotely, and why don't you take us through the operating budget and finance report for 23-24?
Sure. So August 31st numbers are in front of you. It does reflect an allowance booked of $961,000 as reflected in the resolution that is coming up later. This does look at our current outstanding AR balance. So that is an increase from the last results that I had shown you. There's some additional indirect revenue from our grants and contracts that did get booked into miscellaneous revenue since the last time. And we're continuing to work through final audit adjustments. But not expecting any other significant changes. So results that are presented in front of you should be final, are pretty close to it. Just to share as far as like revenues and, from our budget to where we actually ended for the year. Tuition revenue, again, we expected or budgeted a 2% decline, ended up with a 6% increase in our FTEs for the summer and fall. So we had an 8% swing in our revenue. The other thing is our summer enrollment numbers, our FTEs were up pretty significantly. I believe it was around 16%. So again, really driving the revenue when you look at our tuition fees, as well as our other counties, the chargeback revenue. The final thing I'll highlight too, is we did take advantage of our higher interest rates that have been out there and did receive approximately $750,000 in interest income last year. So that has really helped bolster those revenue numbers as we look at from budget to actual.
Questions on revenue for Jason? A lot of smiles. Keep going.
Okay. Expenses are there. Again, really no changes except for the allowance for doubtful accounts, where we did book an additional allowance that did bring that supply and expense line up to 11.7. Some of the additional above budget reasons is because of our contracts out. We did have some vacancies. We did fill that vacancy with some temporary help and use temporary agencies for that. So again, something that we see that lower salary and benefits, but we do see that increase in our supply and expense line. So
Questions on the expense side? Keep on going.
okay. For the September 30th, 2024 results, nothing of concern here. Really what you look at here, or what I've been looking at, is where we were at 23-24 to 24-25. We're up 2%, or about approximately 2% in FTEs, as Carol reported earlier. So that's helping to drive some of our revenue numbers up. When we come back to talk about October results in December, we'll see that tuition's a lot higher, and some of that is driven because of our Gemini change and when we had our enrollment and recognizing certain programs. So there is some movement that we'll bring to you or show you as we come back for present the October results.
So just a question on the state aid and sponsor.
Yep.
Remind us from a timing standpoint, when you're anticipating receiving maybe those first tranches of dollars?
Yeah, so state aid will come, it did arrive in October, so that will be reflected in our October results. We usually get that on a quarterly basis. So October, and then we typically see maybe late December, early January, again in June or May timeframe, and then, typically in July, sometimes earlier. So they do hold the second quarter payments for us to wait for everyone or for us to submit our annual report of our 8/31 results. So last year, I think we received our payment in January.
Okay.
The sponsor contribution, that will come typically in February, March timeframe, once the county does collect their tax revenues for 2025.
Questions on this portion? Revenues. Expenses, please.
Expenses, salaries are in line compared to where we are for this for projections. And then equipment, utilities, there is a lag in there, but we'll begin to catch up as we begin our equipment purchases for the year. And then utilities, we're always on a lag for presentation. But again, with our Gemini program, some of that switch from spring to fall will increase our supply and expenses compared to previous years, just on how we book the scholarships that do come from the Gemini program.
Okay. Final comments, Jason, with regard to this 24-25 update through the end of September?
Nothing for 24-25. I think for 23-24, the audit, we are beginning that. We've sent initial trial balance to Bonadeo. They will be auditing the statements in the beginning of December and obtaining audit or our support. So I would expect to be able to provide you an update in the February meeting. That audit will be complete. So.
Final questions from trustees on these two portions? No, you've answered all the questions. Resolutions. Looks like we have a couple.
Yep.
Right ahead.
The first resolution is to write off accounts receivable. This write-off is outstanding receivables from fall of 2021 to summer of 22. The amount is $974,000. We are still looking through and analyzing some of that, but I do feel that that number is appropriate for that time period.
Okay.
As we talked about, writing off those balances, we now have to increase our allowance. So that $961,000 is that increase in the allowance. We did budget for, I believe, $500,000. So there is some additional expense related when we compare our budget. I do, looking forward, I would expect that, that allowance that we book every year is in that $500,000 to $600,000 range as we work through collections with our students.
In terms of the write-off for accounts receivable, you see this as that's the annual number for 21-22. So we'll next be addressing 22-23.
Correct. Yep. We'll address fall of 22 to summer of 23.
Right.
And we have talked about, or we have ramped up our collection efforts with our collection agency, looking at those balances specifically. So.
Okay. EV station.
EV stations, attached resolution establishes us as the lead agent. And, this is based on the findings of the board, comments received, and other project materials, the negative declaration of significance for the EV charging stations in Lot G. The EV stations will be funded through both a NYSERDA grant as well as RG&E tax incentives or incentives. And then also we'll file some credit incentive through the IRS to help cover that cost of the EV stations going in Lot G.
Okay. How many EV stations? Just remind us again.
I believe there's 12 EV stations. There's 12 ports going in. And they'll be level 2.
Level
station.
twos.
Yes, yep, level 2.
Thank you, Frank. Final questions. Budget transfer.
Budget transfers are occurring within departments to the appropriate lines. So.
Great. Anything final, Jason, you want to share with the trustees?
No, I'm all set.
Questions for Jason? I think we're all set. Thank you, Jason. Enjoy your time in Saratoga. Safe travels.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. Anything else to bring? No, for the group? I entertain a motion for adjournment, please. So moved by. Thank you, Rich. Second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman Dot, back to you.
Thank you, trustee Martin. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting for November 6, 2024 in order. Is there anybody on the phones for us?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda minutes and resolution.
Move. I'll second. George?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Steve?
Is there any old business? Any new business? Okay. That'd be nice.
Okay, I'll be real brief. I'd just like to highlight 2 things from our report. First is this Saturday is the fall open house, starting at 9:30. Well, it is an exceptional event. If you want to come for the best part, come at 10:30 and come to the gym and see all the faculty and staff. Is it 10? What's that?
Cafe.
Cafe, okay, not the gym, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. I'm so used to being in the gym.
Yes.
Okay, so come to the cafe at 10:30 where you can see all the faculty interact with potential students in the programs and everything they have there. And then to see a lot of the great work that staff does from Carol's staff and then Laura's staff in terms of providing a great atmosphere for parents and potential students to see the value and the beauty of FLCC. Second, in my report, I just wanted to highlight, first off, thank you to Dr. Covington for the preparation work that was done pre-election season to help our county be prepared for the election yesterday. And then second, tomorrow, we'll be holding a session with Professor Eric Duchess to allow people to talk about the election and what goes from that. What's really important we have to look at is how does that fit into requirements down the road for Title IX, Title VI, and then how sensitive we must be when we have, hopefully we don't have, but situations where we have to deal with issues of bad intents by folks. I'll leave it at that. But I'm very happy with what we've accomplished so far to be prepared for that. And then we also, not in my report, did an EOC exercise the other day. It was based on cyber, but the concepts that would be used by going either to a small group EOC or a full-up EOC are still the same, and it's good to practice that. We practiced that the other day. It's my report, unless there are any questions from the trustees.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Nye. Okay, committee liaison reports, student trustee report.
Hello, only 2 things to report on. First, I had the opportunity to attend the NYCCTC conference, which was really awesome to sit on the student trustee session. I wasn't really sure what to expect when I went there, but I got to meet all the different community college student trustees, and it was really cool to get to sit down and have a nice formal little meeting to talk about the struggles they're having in their community colleges and also be able to empower them with things that maybe I might know that other students might know, and to be able to give them some insight on those problem areas. But we also had a conversation about advocacy and how we could, as students, take charge of that. And then secondly, the Student Activities Committee conducted a Laker Spirit Week for the first time in several years. They did Team Day, Hat Day, Flick or Treat, and Laker Pride Friday. Happy to report that it was a very good turnout and it got a lot of students excited, especially around this troublesome time of the month. So that's also I have to report.
Thank you. Trustee Asta, the RN committee.
Nothing to report. Jason mentioned where they are in the process, so we'll work towards that.
Thank you. Trustee Mahalik, Board Development Committee.
Dana, board development.
I didn't have a report.
Okay, thank you.
Dana, but I will add that Dr. and I did get together and we're going to get the student success, rough draft.
Excellent.
Okay, my association report is in the packet. Trustee Guys Foundation.
I just would like to thank, Bree, a week ago, yesterday, Barbara Sir and Karen Blasey hosted a women's group here in stage 14. And Bree gave a tour of the new nursing wing. Nobody had seen it before in that particular group. It went over very well. A lot of incredibly good comments about, gee, we didn't know you did this kind of stuff with college. So that goes into our community engagement, trying to bring people in, even if it's only a small group. This is only a small group of maybe 30 people. But, so if you have any other groups out there, I'm sure Bree will be happy to do more tours. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. NYCCP, Trustee Mahalik and Trustee Frischman.
Chairman. Well, there's certainly a lot going on. We had a, I think a very, very successful annual meeting. We had so 24, 25 of the colleges were represented at that meeting, which is the highest in memory. And it was, it's just by all participants, very, very productive, informative meeting. And at that meeting, we actually, Donna was kind enough to do a very stirring acceptance speech for Richard Russell, who received the Marvin A. Rapp Award for Distinguished Trustee Service. And NYCCP salutes him for his commitment and extraordinary leadership as a trustee of Finger Lakes Community College. Trustee Russell, I know you were very bashful and also very tied up with family matters, but we're bringing this to you, so.
I wanted to leverage that. You got a gasp of awe at one point from the crowd. And I was hoping that I could not recall your story about Marvin Rapp.
Oh,
So I
Rolling Methodist Church down Main Street on logs? Yeah.
They moved several houses like that, Ken, David, in the old days. A horse and lots, yeah. It was very common.
They're not in the middle of the night.
Oh, well, that's the
When they were
best
trying
time
to
to tell traffic.
Well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that and certainly appreciate you filling in and accepting it for me.
We were sorry you could not be there, but we want you to know that people seem to be very happy to hear that you had gotten in word, a person of your service.
Thank you.
A number of other activities we did, Trustee Russell did join me with several other trustees from other colleges at the FCCC Faculty Council for Community Colleges. All the faculty council reps from all the different colleges, and we sat and had some really, really interesting conversations about shared governance. It was enlightening, I think, in several ways for us. We're going to have more conversations about shared governance and just better understanding how we can help to facilitate a healthy relationship through that process. We've been very active certainly with the chancellor's desire to take more control of the presidential search, presidential reviews, presidential contracts. And we had right around 22, 23 of the colleges so far have sent resolutions, as have several. We had a letter from this county. We've had resolutions from counties and letters also go out to the chancellor on that. And that's in a holding pattern at this point. I did mention we have the college enrollment best practices educational module on November 14th. Please sign up for it. It'll be very interesting. We have Carol representing Finger Lakes Community College, and I think we've got a great story to tell, so I'm very proud to have her there to talk about that. We also have somebody from Mohawk Valley. We also have somebody from the Athletic Association, the NJ, whatever. Yeah. Because there is a role for them to play on enrollment. So we're looking at not only best practices, but barriers. We're looking for barriers and things that perhaps the trustees can get involved with to help break down barriers if there are any. I guess we will be having in January the legislative reception in Albany. So we'll be letting you know about that, and that's always a really good event. We actually got a tremendous number of legislators that came, and we had a chance to talk and have a soft drink and some cheese with them, and it was great. Really helps to build those relationships. And I guess that's, Donna, am I missing anything else?
I think you've covered the basics.
Yeah, I think that's.
It's been a huge amount of activity, and you would all be very proud of George's leadership as the newly elected chair of NYCC. Hear her.
And somewhat related is the ACCT Leadership Congress, and Dr. Knight and Board Block, thank you again for all the preparation on the presentation that we did on our strategic grants. We literally, how many questions did we get, Steve?
23 questions.
23 questions. We couldn't get out of the room.
8 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever, 9 minutes. Yeah.
And then Donna and I had other trustees actually bribing us with wine to go sit and help them figure out how they can do it. So, I mean, we heard from a lot of trustees that it was one of the most valuable sessions they went through, and there were a lot of sessions to go through. I guess I deferred to Trustee Martin and Trustee Mihalik, other things that they got out of the ACCT Leadership Congress.
AI dominated, almost 40%, from the start to the end in terms of our keynotes, and the even afternoon conference sessions were exceptionally well attended, I have to say. The engagement of the trustees nationally, the first time I remember Ben, was impressive. Bankers don't always do that, but college trustees do it. I was impressed. And ours was almost standing room only in terms of our presentation. So, yeah, a lot of fun.
I'll just report on the member of communications and education committee. one of the things that they are doing at ACCT is repositioning themselves as being an international organization. They have started a program with Department of Education in India and are trying to work on a community college relationship with an Indian school. This is a new effort based on the skill set of a particular individual that they hired at ACCT, Robin Helms Mattress. She and I have had conversations last year, and she brought it up again this year for future discussions about our community college viticulture program. She has a colleague in France that she said after the conference she would be in touch with and wanted to make sure we were still interested in pursuing some discussions about an international program. So I don't have anything specific to let you know, but I just wanted you to know we were on the radar screen.
Thank you, Darren.
Wow. Go our Valley.
Student Corp. The notes are in the package, and just a special shout out to Jenny Ertl Crampton for taking notes for me while I was in Seattle.
Good. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters regarding the employment history of a particular person or matters leading to the employment of a particular person pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7, Paragraph 105.
So moved.
George will second, Donald second.
For the trustees, okay, I would like to ask that the staff be able to stay, not just particular individuals, if that's okay with you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Moving right in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.